We left off Samaches Ben Aleph. The Mishnah had said that you have certain relationships, and as Tosfos explained, it's not a question what creates a mamzer. It says this relationships create mamzer. But the whole discussion in the Gemara is, how do we know that if you marry a woman who's not permitted to you, in incestuous relationship, how do we know the kedushin is not a kedushin? That's the Gemara's question. So first answer was, it's based on the hekesh. Because the Torah goes and juxtaposes all the forbidden relationships to achos isha. So the hekesh, even though you can differentiate, we have a principle, ein meshivin al hekesh. All of the differences, the difference doesn't make a difference. Once the Torah associates one with the other, so Gemara asks the question, but what about nida? If a person marries a nida, she's mekudeshes, even though nida is part of that hekesh. So on that Gemara answered, because it says regarding nida, it says ki siya nidosa olav. It uses the term siya, sihi nidosa olav. Si is an expression of havaya, of marriage, that even though she's a nida, nevertheless the marriage is a marriage. Although it's a chavi krisus, a person marries a nida, the marriage is a marriage. So here's the question: what do I learn from achos isha? If nida is part of the hekesh, why do I associate all the forbidden relationships to nida, to achos isha? Why don't I associate it with nida? And that the Gemara gave an answer, because when it's a question l'kul l'chumra makshina. Whenever it's a question to associate something chumra or l'kula, the association is always more stringent rather than more lenient. That was the Gemara's answer. Okay. Then the Gemara gave another answer. Get back here. Rav Acha Yaakov Oma Asri B'Kal V'Chomer MiYavama. Rav Acha Yaakov says it's based on the Kal V'Chomer we learn from Yavama. Uma Yavama Shi Balav. If you have a woman in waiting, what we call Yavama L'Shuk, and you want to marry her, person, although it's only Chav Yilav, it says Lucia Isha Samesh Achutz Lo Izor, that the woman, the widow of the dead, the wife of the dead, should not marry Izor, a third party, meaning she's a woman in waiting, she's waiting for levirate marriage. How do we know that if you marry her, although it's Chav Yilavim, there's no Tfisas Kedushin? Because the Torah says, Losia, Losi Eish Sames. This is Rav, and then we rule this way. Losia, there is no Kedushin if you marry the Eish Sames, although it's only a Chav Yilavim. So Rav Acha Yaakov makes a Kal V'Chom, Asher Kal V'Chom Yavoma, Ma Yavoma Shi Balav. The woman in waiting, which is only a lav. Lo Tafsi Bo Kedushin, if you marry her, the marriage is not a marriage, because it says Lo Siya Eish Sames. Siya means there's no marriage regarding her. So Chayv Mises Bezdin, Misos, Chayv Krisus, Lo Koshkein. So if the woman carries the liability of the death penalty, or Kores, definitely the marriage is not a marriage. So my next question, so let's learn from from Yavom L'Shuk. Let's learn out all Chayv Lavim. The marriage is not a marriage. If you marry an ordinary woman, a person marries a mamzeris, we should learn from there the marriage is not a marriage. Similar to what? To Yavoma, which Rabbi Akiva learns. And that's Rabbi Akiva's position. We don't rule like Rabbi Akiva. No, we're learning Kal V'Chomer. We're not saying that's the exception. So why don't we use that as a basis? As we make a Kal V'Chomer, let's use it as a basis to draw everything from there. No, we're saying no. Kal V'Chomer means definitely. But now the Gemara is saying, no, Gemara's not asking Kal V'Chomer. Gemara says Memotzina. How do we know Chayv Krisus Meses Bez that's Kal V'Chomer? But now that we've established that an ordinary lav, Torah says clearly there's no Tfisas Kedushin, marriage, you've married that woman, it's not a marriage. So all Chayv Lavim, any lav, if you marry the woman, let's draw from there that it's not a marriage. That's the concept of Memotzino. So let that be the rule, and draw from that rule throughout the Torah. It's not a marriage. That's the first question. It's not a mamzer. It's not a mamzer. It's not a marriage.
What is it?
Nothing. It's like a
Very
it means nothing. You have witnesses, means nothing.
It means nothing.
Why? Because Torah says losia.
Lo
Tiyeh means the marriage is not a marriage. It's not a marriage. That's what Torah says. But although it's an ordinary love. Losia. Like it says regarding Nida. How do we know Nida? It is a marriage because it says Usi Nidos Olav. That despite the fact that it has liability of Kores, Usihi. Si means it is a marriage. Despite that. So here it says Losia. Despite the fact that it's a lav, it's Losia.
There's no cause.
There,
It's not a marriage, so we should use that as a cause.
not a kalvachom, not a kalvachom. No, that we use a kalvachom for chayvi lav and chayvi krisus. We draw from that. So if an ordinary lav, the marriage is not a marriage. So if you marry a woman who has liability, death penalty, definitely shouldn't be nothing. That's the kalvachom. But now, after that's everything said and done, but let's use it as a model for all chayvi lavim. For ordinary lav, just as this lav, which is an ordinary lav, although it doesn't have the greater liability, is not a marriage. All lavim should not be a marriage. That's the Mor's question. See, Tosei is an interesting question here. We have a kal v'chomer. Then we say chayvi lavim. So we say, what about chayvi lavim? Why don't we say nida yochiach? Nida is chayvi krisus, right? It's a chayvi krisus, and despite that, the Torah says what? It is a marriage. So what do you ask me I should draw from Yevama? That it's not a marriage. I'll show you that you have a chayvi krisus, like such as nida, and we say it is a marriage. See, regarding a hekesh, within the hekesh, if there's a question I could associate it with the more lenient or the more stringent, the more says l'chomer makshina. But here we're using kal v'chomer. Kal v'chomer. So we should say, there's a fallacy. Because I have a case, although it's chayvi krisus, right? It's kores. Even though it's kores, the marriage is a marriage. If you marry nida, that's Tosa's question. So we'll see Tosa's answer. It says something interesting. But now the question is, Ihochi shar chayvi lavim nami. So if you marry any chayvi lavim, let's draw from Yevama that the marriage should not be a marriage. That's the first question. Omer papa chayvi lavim behedjik sipu. He says because I have an explicit pasuk in the Torah that if a person marries a chayvi lavim, the marriage is a marriage. Where do we see the marriage is a marriage? The Torah says kiseno li'ish te noshim. A man has two wives. O achas ahuva achas nua. One is beloved and one is despised. Now, when it says one is beloved to the husband, one is a good marriage, and the other is not a good marriage. So the Torah says, even though the child is born from the despised woman, if that is the firstborn, he has the rights of a bechorah, despite that he's born from the despised woman. So does it mean she's despised by the husband, or the marriage is frowned upon by the Torah? Is snua in the eyes of God, or is snua in the eyes of the husband? That's the question. Does it make a difference whether she's despised? If it's a question of the relation between the husband and the wives, does it really make a difference regarding the laws of inheritance? Whether it's a good marriage or not? I mean, Rashi says, is that a reason to deny the firstborn his inheritance rights? Factually, it's his born. If inheritance rights is based upon who is his firstborn, does it really make a difference whether he loves his wife, he doesn't love his wife? One is a better marriage, one's a worse marriage. Factually, the Torah says, what does Bechorah depend upon? The first seed. Whoever opened the womb of the mother, he's the heir, he has greater rights, inheritance rights. Elo ahuva ahuva b'duseo. What are we speaking about? That the marriage is a marriage which is condoned by the Torah, or snua b'duseo. It's frowned upon. The Torah actually does not condone the marriage because it's a marriage be'isr. It was not a proper marriage, even though the marriage is a marriage. So we're referring to it as a marriage, but it's not an appropriate marriage. No, so what are we speaking about? The Gemara says, Ukamara. And what is the Torah? How does the Torah refer to this? Kisiyeno. Kisiyeno lishtei noshim. Within the context of Kisiyeno, he has two wives. One is ahuva. One is a appropriate marriage. Then one is inappropriate. It's frowned upon. And despite the fact it's frowned upon, how does the Torah refer to it? Kisiyeno, within the context that it's a marriage. So here we see that although it's chayvi lavim, nevertheless, the marriage is a marriage. That's what the more answers. So therefore, from here we see that Yivama is the exception rather than being the rule. It's the exception to rather than the rule.
But can you still learn from that exception the Kavachoma?
No, you could learn to. You could.
Good.
Because that's Chavi Krisus, that's more stringent, but on par, we say that's the exception. For Lavim, it's the exception.
Understood, but you can learn from
You can still learn the Kalvachom. Kalvachom, you can still learn. Because this is not different than, it can be any, if the Torah says, we're so strict here, definitely something which is death penalty or Krisus, definitely.
So if the Kavachomer would work, then we wouldn't need the Pasuk on either?
Well, Dita was a problem. Kalvachom tells me the marriage is not a marriage. The marriage, if you marry an incestuous relationship, the marriage is not a marriage.
So you do need the Pasuk.
No, that's the Kalvachomer. The question, Nida is the question. It's in the question. What are you learning from there? We see Nida, although it's Chavi Krisus, we see the marriage is a marriage. Right? So I might as well tell you what Tosa's answers, rather than, because Tosa's answer now, we had before, we had a Hekish, right, where the Torah enumerates all the forbidden relationships, and the Torah says they're all on par. So that just as Ahos Isha, we say the marriage is not a marriage, identically, all of the relationships, the marriage is not a marriage. So the more asked the question, what I learned from Nida, the more answer, L'kul l'chumra l'chumra makshina, right? That was the more first answer. The Gemara is answering now, no. We don't need that. We have a Kal V'chomer. So what is the Kal V'chomer? Kal V'chomer only reveals to me to associate all the incestuous relationship with Achosisha rather than with Nida. Right? If it would be based just on the Kal V'chomer, we have a Pirch on the Kal V'chomer. There's a fallacy in the Kal V'chomer. So what about Nida? Right? We say Nida, the marriage is a marriage. So you see, the Kal V'chomer is not a cogent Kal V'chomer. There's a fallacy in the logic. The answer is it's based on the Hekish. Based on the Hekish. But why did I learn from Nida? The answer is because I have a Kal V'chomer. The logic of the Kal V'chomer tells me to associate it with Achosisha rather than with Nida. Because since I find a lav, it's called Gilui Milsa. It only is a revelation how to appreciate, how to understand the associations within all the forbidden relationships. Do I associate, do they identify with Achosisha, or did they identify with Nida? So we say logically it would make sense because of the Kal V'chomer that I associate them with Achosisha. Because if we find an ordinary love, such as Yivama, the marriage is not a marriage, by Chayvi Mises Bezdin and Chayvi Krisus, definitely should not. That tells me to associate them with Achosisha rather than with Nida. The question is, what about Nida? The answer is, we're not basing it on the Kal V'chomer in its right. We're basing it on the Hekish. But we had a question, why associated with Achosisha, associated with Nida? The answer is because I have a Kal V'chomer. The Kal V'chomer tells me that what if for an ordinary law we see the marriage is not a marriage, definitely by Mises Bezdin and Kori is not. So he said, what about Nida? But that's exactly what it's coming to tell me. Because I have that likeness to Yivama with a Kal V'chomer, therefore it makes sense to say when the Torah states as a Hekish, Nida is the exception rather than the rule. Following.
So because you have the...
I have a Hekish. Right? The Torah stated a Hekish. I have multiple situations mentioned, incestuous relationships, and now I have a question. If you marry this woman, does the woman need a get? That was the question. Nida tells me, you marry Chavi Krisus, you do need a get. Achosisha tells me, you marry does not need a get. So do I identify all of them with Achosisha or with Nida? That was the question. So the Gemara says, I have a Kal V'chomer to tell me that they should all be identified with Achosisha. Why? Because if I find an ordinary love, the Torah says the marriage is not a marriage, which is explicit in the Torah. So if it's Chayvi Mises Bezdin, Chayvi Krisus, definitely the marriage should not be a marriage. So if we'd have the Kal V'chomer in its own right, you say, look, the Kal V'chomer is not, there's a fallacy in the logic. Because I have Nida. I find Kores, and I see the marriage is a marriage. We're not basing it on Kal V'chomer. Kal V'chomer only says, logically makes sense to identify it with Achosisha rather than with Nida. Neither is the exception, because if an ordinary lav was saying the marriage is not a marriage, logically it would make sense to say that, what? This is best Koris, definitely it's not. But what about Koris? But that's the discussion over here. Therefore, it's more logical within the context of the Hekish to identify with Achosisha than with Nida. That's what Tosas answers. So now the Gemara asks a question. Siena, nobody argues. The word Siena means what? Marriage. Reb Kiva holds Chayvi Lavin. If you marry a Chayvi Lavin, the marriage is not a marriage. So how does Reb Kiva reconcile the pasuk with his position? Yeah, that's the pasuk. Snu and Ahuva, because it says Ki Siena, right? So we're asking Reb Kiva, Dom Ein Kedushim Tovsim Chayvi Lavim, Ki Siena b'Maimukim lo, b'Maimukim. How does he establish the Siena? In what context are we speaking? It can't be Chayvi Lavim. So Mer says Balmono Kohen Gadol. It's speaking about a Kohen Gadol marries a widow, which is a love. Love. So why is that love? The marriage is a marriage. Why? Why is that love different than any other love? Could Reb Simoy, as Reb Simoy explains, the Tanya, Reb Simoy Omer, Mirakola yo Reb Kiva osed mamzer. Every Chayvi Lavim, because there's no marriage, the child is a mamzer. There's no Tvisas Kedushin. Chutz mi Almon Kohen Gadol. The exception is Almon Kohen Gadol. Why? Sharei Omra Torah lo yichalel. It says if he marries this an almona, a widow, he will desecrate his seed. He will profane his seed. So what is the connotation lo yichalel? Chilul moseh vein oseh mamzerus. The child is a chol, not a mamzer. Cholol is a kosher Jew, although if it's a woman, she's not permitted to marry a Kohen. But regarding any other Jew, she's permitted to any other Jew. So chilul and oseh v'lo mamzer. That's the exception. So when the Torah says snua, that means a Kohen Gadol married an appropriate wife, and he married an almona. Okay? It is tofis. It is. That's why. Since the child's not a mamzer, that's an indication that there's tvisas kedushin. His position is every chayvi lavim, it's not, and therefore the child's a mamzer. But regarding an almona to a Kohen Gadol, the marriage is a marriage. So that's kisiyeno. So the Gemara could have said that, ordinary Kohen, but the Gemara is going to fall off, is going to have difficulty with almona or Kohen Gadol in a moment, because there's an opinion that says that even almona Kohen Gadol, the marriage is not a marriage. That's why I chose this case. Rather than starting with an ordinary Kohen to a Grusha, and then having to switch the case to a Kohen Gadol, who is only permitted to marry a virgin, we stay with a Kohen Gadol, and we follow it through, and say, even though it's not almona, which means the Kohen Gadol married a woman who was not a virgin. The Gemara could have said that. The Gemara could have said at this point, an ordinary Kohen married a divorcee. The Gemara could have said that. Would agree for the same reason, because it says lo yichalel. The same reason. Okay? But as we'll see in a moment, because the Gemara now asks, Ulu Reb Sheva, but according to Reb Sheva, who argues with Reb Simoy, Doma bo nitzavech al Akiva ben Yosef, he says, let us protest. Literally, let's scream. Let's protest the position of Akiva ben Yosef. Omer kol she'ein lo b'yo b'Yisrael v'lad mamzer. Reb Kiva is what? He's creating a context where he's increasing the basis for moral legitimacy among Jews. According to the way we rule, you have to have an incestuous relation to be a mamzer. Reb Kiva says any loving, so he's proliferating mamzerus according to Reb Kiva. So he says honich lo Reb Yishevav yulafukin Reb Simoy kosi shapir. If Reb Yishevav is only coming to argue Reb Simoy, and meaning his position is, you say it's the Kohen Gadol is the exception. So if you say he's only arguing with Chayvi Lavim, that's all he's taking issue with, right? So what do we have? Elei Tamid Nafshe Koma Afil Chayvi Esei b'Maimukim Lo. Now let's explain it. If he's only taking issue with a lav, Rav Kiva doesn't differentiate. Every lav there's no tvisas kedushin. Every lav there's mamzer. So we have a case of what's the case of Kisen Lishtei Noshim. Will be the case. Let's say the Jew marries a mitzris, or an adomis, correct? Only the third generation of an Egyptian who converts is permitted to marry, is a legitimate Jew, is a kosher Jew. What happens if his first wife is a kosher woman, and the second wife is a second generation Egyptian? So that's Kisin Lishtei Noshim, Ach Zahuva, Ach Asnua. So if he's only taking issue with Reb Simoy regarding Chayvi Lavim, that he holds Almonul Kohen Gadol is also Mamzer, so how would he learn the Pasuk? Chayvi Yesei, where he's violating Mitzvah Saseh. You're not permitted to marry, an ordinary Jew is not permitted to marry what a Mitzvah. Eli'i Taimid Navshi Komar. But if he's coming, he's saying he's established his own position. We argue every forbidden relationship. Rav Kiva is of the opinion, even Chayvi Yesei, it's a Mamzer. So how does he explain the pasuk? According to Rabbi Shevov, how does he explain the pasuk? Kisiyah leish shtei noshim, ochsahu v'achasnua. Right? How do you have siyana? If even Chayvi Yesei, a mitzvah, the marriage is not a marriage. So how do you? But it says the pasuk says kisiyana. On that it says bebulo kohen gadol. See, it's speaking about not an almolo kohen gadol. It's a woman who was not a virgin. A kohen gadol marries a woman who's not a virgin. So not a virgin, what is that? That's a mitzvah saseh. Okay? Bula kohen gadol. Or maishno. If an ordinary chayvi yeseg, we say according to Reb Kiva, according to Rabbi Sheva, it's a mamzer, so why bula kohen gadol? Why isn't that a mamzer also? What do we differentiate between one asay and another asay? Either case, you're violating an asay. If an asay is a basis to create a legitimacy, such as a mitzvah, so a bula kohen gadol should also create that same illegitimacy. So why is this the exception? Mishum davli mitzvah says shein shava bakol, because the asay of Ba'ula only has relevance to one individual. That's only the Kohen Gadol. Mitzvahs is prevalent among all Jews. No Jew is permitted to marry a mitzvah. Therefore, Reb Kiva is of the opinion there, since it's not a marriage which is acceptable to any Jew, it's not permitted to any Jew, therefore what? It's a mamzer. But since this is a asay shein shava bakol, it's not something which has relevance to anybody other than the Kohen Gadol, therefore it doesn't produce illegitimacy. And that's the case of Kisien Olish. Shtei Noshim. A Kohen Gadol marries two women. One is a permitted wife, one's not a permitted. What's the not permitted wife? She was not a virgin. So the halach is, nevertheless, the child of the illegitimate wife is what? That child is considered the Bechor. So Rashi himself, okay, points out, what about if she lost her virginity, not within the context of a marriage, right? So she's a zona. So it's a lav. A Kohen Gadol, just as an ordinary Kohen is not permitted to marry a zona. I mean, how did she lose her virginity? No, wait. So Rashi says, so that's what Rashi should have answered. Rashi says, because the prohibition of zona is only if it was a forbidden relationship. But if a woman has premarital relations, and the person she had relations with was a kosher Jew, she does not become a zona. She's not a zona. So if she's not a zona, so what is she? What is lacking? She's not a virgin. So that's an Isser Aseh. And since this prohibition only is limited to the Kohen Gadol, therefore it's Esi Sheinu Shava Bakol, it does not produce illegitimacy, therefore that child is not a mamzer. I mean, Rashi could have said something else. The Gemara says in Yevomis that a woman, she's considered a full virgin at what age? At 12. As a woman gets older, she's not considered a full virgin any longer. She starts to lose her virginity naturally. It starts, the hymen begins actually deteriorating. So it's a machlokes tanoim. Does she have to be a full besula or even a partial besula? It's machlokes tanoim. When it says besula, does it mean a full besula or even a partial besula? Okay, so if you say she has to be a full basula, the only woman who's permitted to marry is a 12-year-old, and once she's beyond 12 and a half, even the Kohen Gadol is not permitted to marry her. So you say it's simple. It's speaking about a woman. I mean, the question doesn't even begin. He marries a woman who's more than 12 and a half years old. He's in violation of the mitzvah saseh. But there's another opinion that says no. There's more, even a partial basula, although if it naturally deteriorates, she's still considered a basula. So if that's the case, that's the question. So she should be a zona. So therefore, Rashi has to answer that she only becomes a zona only if it's a forbidden relationship. Who could answer, like you said? What about mukaseitz? Let's say she had an accident. She had an accident. Because she had an accident, she lost her virginity. So it's not a natural. The external event took place, and therefore she lost her virginity. So then, I mean, the question doesn't even begin. The answer is because Rashi wants that even if she had sexual relations, if the person was permitted to her, she does not assume the status of a zona. Therefore, she's permitted to the Kohen Gadol. So the only issue is what? She's not a virgin. Not a virgin. Asay she'ena shava bakol, since it's limited only to him, it does not produce illegitimacy. And therefore the marriage is a marriage. Kosher children. No, it will be a cholo. It will be a cholo. It will be a cholo for a Kohen Gadol.
She's never been with a man, but she's both lost the virginity.
Same thing. For a Kohen Gadol, it will be the same thing. Same thing.
It seems harsh.
Why is
There's
it?
a big difference between a woman's regulations.
It has not. The Torah says. Can I ask you a question? I'll sell you something. I'll give you a 90% discount, but it's damaged goods. I don't buy damaged goods. Right? I don't buy damaged goods. I only want perfect. But you realize it just happened in the weave. It's not. It doesn't make a difference. I want perfect. I want a perfect garment, perfect weave. Torah says a Kohen Gadol has a certain dimension of status. Only a woman who's a virgin, regardless how she lost her virginity, it's irrelevant. I'll give you an example. The Gemara says that if a woman is not a virgin, regardless why, the ksuba is only 100. Is 100 on a Torah level. She does not get a ksuba. The ksuba is a woman is not a virgin. A ksuba is only rabbinical. It's not a Torah ksuba. Only a virgin does she get a Torah ksuba. If she's not a virgin, she does not get a ksuba for 200. Why? Because that Torah says, because if she's has all her natural characteristics of a woman, then she gets the ksuba of 200. If she's not naturally as she was born, physical characteristics as a whole woman, she does not get the ksuba. Torah says a Kohen Gadol, because of his distinction of what he represents, only the virgin. She's not a virgin. She's not qualified to marry him.
It's completely a physical thing.
Physical.
And its spirituality has nothing to do with it.
It does have. Does have.
This is not
Give you
a
an example.
spiritual issue.
No, person's a Balmum. Kohen's a Balmum. Isn't qualified to officiate. Right? Regardless how he became a Balmum. He was born a Balmum.
It's not a spiritual thing.
It is, but it's a spiritual, because he doesn't qualify spiritually. Because physically he's flawed. It's considered a blemish. Therefore, spiritually he doesn't make the grade. And therefore he's not qualified to do the avoda. He does the avoda, it's not a valid avoda. It's not valid. Balmum does the avoda is not valid. Regardless of his pedigree. He could be the son of Aaron. Doesn't make a difference. The Gemara says, Noach was a Kohen. You know that. Noach brought korbanos. But he was not, after the Mabul, he was not qualified to bring Shem had to bring the korban. Bring the sacrifice. Many sacrifices were brought. Why? Because it says he delayed feeding the lion, and the lion bit him. And he became a Balmum. It's Gemara Avodah Zarah. Therefore, he couldn't officiate. Being a Balmum, he wasn't qualified to officiate. So Shem, his son, he officiated. He brought the korbanos on his behalf. It's not his fault, or whatever it is. Doesn't make a difference. That defect disqualifies him. A Kohen Gadol, because of his special level of distinction, the only woman qualifies to marry him, right, is only a woman who's a full virgin. She's not a full virgin. She's not qualified to marry him.
And you say with Noach that physical issue became a spiritual issue?
Again. To qualify to bring about a certain spiritual effect, you have to be fully physically intact. If you're not physically, you cannot bring about that spiritual result. That's the concept of Balmum. No, can't officiate. Can't officiate.
In those days, before the sin, somebody had the status of a Kohen. So how do we explain Billy and Kabbalah? They brought Kohanis, they were not Kohanim.
Has nothing with a non-Jew. A non-Jew is not. These people. Yeah. Good. It says that Noach brought Chumash. David's a student of the Chumash. The Gemara says that the Torah speaks about kosher species. He took 7 kosher species, 2 non-kosher species, just a couple, male and a female. So the Gemara says, and Rashi brings this in Chumash, so you don't have to study the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. Says from here we see that Noach studied Torah. So he didn't study Torah. How does he know what a kosher species, what a not kosher species? So Mikan Lomad Noach Torah. He studied Torah. So just as we find the Avos HaKadoshim, that although they were Noahites, nevertheless, if they were able to abide by the laws of the Torah, they kept the Torah. Noach, although he was a Noahide, he abided by the laws of the Torah. Bilam had no relevance to the Torah. Pre-Sinai, God did not reveal to him what the Torah was. He had a spiritual dimension. He was a prophet, God communicated, but in terms of Torah, he had no relevance to Torah itself. These are people who the Torah, Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever, right? Yaakov studied Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever. What did he study there? Evidently, Shem and Aver. They had the Masorah. Hashem revealed that as he revealed things to Adam and to Noah, this was part of the tradition was passed down to them. But these other people, they never had relevance to that. Therefore, regardless of who they were, what they were, they qualified to what? To bring the korbanos. No, their children are not Kohen. His child is an ordinary Kohen. The Kohen Gadol's child is an ordinary Kohen. It's only for him. He's not permitted. The Kohen Gadol is not permitted to a woman and she's not a virgin. Let's say he marries a virgin, subsequently he has many children. As long as when he got married to her, she was a virgin, it's not a problem later. She lost her virginity. And then the Kohen Gadol marries her. Oh, chalolim. Chalolim. No. No.
How do we know?
Because there's a presumption. He has a cheskes kashrus. He married a woman that was permitted. No, but good. But he didn't violate the law. I understand. Why should I suspect his children are not kosher children? He married a woman that was not permitted to. Right? I mean, a Jew marries a woman. Do we suspect his wife wasn't legitimate? He has a cheskes kashrus. He married a woman that was permitted to him. Because that's something the Kohen Gadol would have been careful to make sure that she didn't. She'd have to be physically examined by a doctor. Yeah, they would have. Otherwise, how did a Kohen Gadol ever know that she's a virgin?
She was subjected to an examination.
Definitely. The Gemara speaks. The Gemara says in Ksubis, a man marries a woman. The halacha is that a woman, when she marries a Kohen, she's permitted to eat truma after Kedushin. After Kedushin. What happens, but rabbinically, she doesn't. She only after chuppah. Why? Because what happens after he consummates the marriage? He finds out she has a certain defect. So if it's a defect, it's what? It's a mekaftos. So retroactively, the marriage is what? Was never a marriage. So we have a non-kohenes, a wife who's not a wife of a kohen eating truma. So therefore, rabbinically, we delay her right to eat truma until she's fully married to the kohen. So Mor says, what happens if 12 months pass? They were supposed to get married from the kedushin till the chuppah. It's 12 months, and for some reason the marriage is delayed. So she would say she's permitted to eat truma. So the question is, but again, we have the same problem. It wasn't consummated. So what happens if the lady should find out that there's some physical defect and he wasn't happy with the marriage? So Mora says that he has his family checking her out in the bathhouse to make sure that physically she's fully intact, that she doesn't have any physical defect that will cause that he should not want to marry this kind of woman. That's what Mora answers. So she's subject to a physical examination if she's agreeable. You're not agreeable, okay, so you're not qualified to marry the Kohen Gadol. That's the way it is. Otherwise, correct. I mean, today it's not simple. Today people marry. There's certain things that have to be checked out. Pedigree has to be checked out. Because today things are bali tshuva, many things, many situations. You have cases today. A Kohen marries a woman, and they're both bali tshuva, or the woman's a bali tshuva. It's not simple. Because if that woman ever had relations with a non-Jew, and now she marries a Kohen, her children are not Kohanim. They're chalolim. So a woman becomes about today. She's 100% observant. She's devout. But when she was in college, she had relations one time in her life with a non-Jew. She's disqualified. She's not permitted to marry a Kohen. And if a Kohen marries and has a child from her, that child is not a Kohen. That's fact. So very often it comes up. A woman wants to date a Kohen, And you have to ask her that question. Were you ever involved with a non-Jew? She says yes, then a Kohen is not eligible for her. And
Proceeded, it's a good marriage.
it's
a cholera.
no, but he's not permitted to continue with her. It's considered a marriage in sin. He's in violation of a lav.
It's a lie.
Every time he cohabits with her, he's in violation of a losas.
The marriage itself is
So what? If you marry mamzeres, it's also tofis,
so
right? It's a marriage. But every time you engage with her, you're in violation of a lav. Because same thing with the Kohen. It's like a Kohen marrying a divorcee. Marries a divorcee. What's the halacha? He's not permitted to be with her. He has to divorce her. Same thing. A zona is a woman who had a relationship was not permitted to her. So she was defiled. Once she's defiled, she's not permitted to a Kohen.
And the Kohen Gadol, the brother dies, his wife, the brother's wife, childless, he can do evil.
No. Again, see, it's two things. We say ines adochalose b'yase. A naseh only supersedes a lav. So if you could have a case where the widow is a virgin, let's say the brother married her and there was only kedushin, he never consummated the marriage. So if that's the case, what am I dealing with? Only almana. It's only a lav. See, if she wasn't a virgin, so we have ein aseh dochalose v'aseh. An aseh does not supersede a lose and an aseh. So if she wasn't a virgin, so there's not a question. He cannot perform yibum.
Just if she wasn't a virgin, what
You have a
against
lav,
her? You've got
a
the
lav and an aseh. A lav.
love, which is
She's not permitted to marry a widow,
yes.
and you have an aseh. She's not a virgin. She's no longer a virgin.
And he's got the other side. the
And that-
positive command.
So a positive does not supersede a negative and a positive.
Okay, so there
Well,
it's clear.
It's clear. But what about if she was widowed after kedushin, and she was a virgin? So then you only have a lav because she's a widow. Wait. So the Mishnah, so the Mishnah's on a Torah level, he should perform evil. But it's a rabbinic, it's a zera because the mitzvah is only the first time they engage with one another. After he marries her, after he consummates the marriage with her, he already performed the mitzvah saseh. So what about the subsequent relationships? She's not permitted to, because factually she's a widow. So what permits the subsequent cohabitations? Not. So we don't allow the first, because ultimately it's going to lead to multiple other relationships. Therefore, he gets chalitza and not jibur.
It's an odd thing that Hashem is clear. The Raisa, the Kohen Gadol should marry her under those circumstances.
It's not.
They only permit this once.
The mitzvah.
It's odd because marriage is not a concept.
It's not marriage. It's not marriage. It's a question of perpetuating the name of the deceased.
But you need a divorce.
No.
It is
So
a
he'll
marriage.
do it once, and then he'll divorce her.
But that's not what.
It's perpetuating the name of the deceased. You know, according to one opinion, Boaz only cohabited with Ruth once, and he passed away that night. Wait a second, I understand that. But that one act established Malchus based David. Okay, good. That's a Yibum. According to the Ramban, that was Yibum. Yibum is perpetuating its one act. Afterwards, you divorce her. To be continued.